Let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear. Your life is not falling apart because you lack motivation. It's not because you don't have talent. It's not because the world is unfair or because you were born unlucky. Most lives fall apart quietly because discipline was never built. Not the loud military kind of discipline people fear, but the quiet kind. The kind that shows up when nobody is watching. The kind that makes you keep promises to yourself even when breaking them would be easy. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect. And every time you choose comfort over commitment, you are teaching yourself that your word doesn't matter. Think about that for a moment. Every small decision you make is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now, when you hit snooze instead of getting up, you are voting. When you avoid the hard conversation, you are voting. When you say, "I'll start Monday," instead of starting today, you are voting. Most people think legendary lives are built by massive actions. They're wrong. Legendary lives are built by small, boring, unglamorous choices made consistently, especially on the days when motivation is gone. Because motivation is a visitor. Discipline is who lives there. If you're listening to this right now, there's a good chance you already know what you should be doing. You don't need more information. You don't need another quote. You don't need another video. What you need is a shift in identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. And standards are enforced by discipline. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with actions you already know you're avoiding. It's not a mystery. It's not hidden knowledge. It's not a secret routine that only successful people have access to. It's waking up when you said you would. It's doing the work when it's boring. It's stopping when you said you would stop. It's choosing progress over pleasure again and again and again. Self-respect isn't something you feel first. It's something you earn. And you earn it by keeping small promises to yourself. Most people are waiting to feel confident before they act. But confidence doesn't come first. Action comes first. Discipline comes first. Confidence is the reward. You don't become disciplined because you respect yourself. You respect yourself because you became disciplined. Look back at your own life for a second. Every time you followed through, even when it was hard, didn't you walk a little taller afterward? Didn't you trust yourself a little more? And every time you quit on yourself, didn't something inside you go quiet? That quiet voice is self-trust leaving the room. And the tragedy is that most people don't lose belief in their dreams. They lose belief in themselves. They stop trusting that they will do what they say they'll do. That's why discipline is freedom. Because when you trust yourself, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop arguing with excuses. You stop waiting for permission. You act. Discipline simplifies life. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like it?" You ask, "Is this who I said I wanted to be?" And then you move. Let me be clear, this is not about perfection. It's about direction. You will fail. You will slip. You will have days where you don't show up the way you planned. Discipline doesn't mean never falling. It means never staying down. It means returning to your standards faster each time. Most people dramatically underestimate how powerful one disciplined year can be. 1 year of waking up earlier, 1 year of daily movement, 1 year of focused work, 1 year of honest self-control. That can rewrite the entire trajectory of your life. But it starts with something very small, a decision to stop betraying yourself for temporary comfort, a decision to stop waiting for motivation, a decision to respect your future enough to do what your present doesn't want to do. You don't need to change everything today. You just need to change one choice and then repeat it tomorrow. That's how legendary lives are built. Not with noise, not with hype, but with quiet consistency. And as this audiobook continues, we're going to strip discipline down to its core, not as punishment, not as restriction, but as the ultimate form of self-respect. Because the moment you decide that your word matters, everything changes. Most people think discipline means forcing yourself to suffer. They imagine pain, restriction, life where joy is removed and replaced with constant struggle. But that's not discipline. That's misunderstanding. Real discipline doesn't steal your freedom. It gives it back. Because when you are undisciplined, your life is controlled by impulses, by moods, by cravings, by distractions that decide your future for you. Undisciplined people don't live freely. They live reactively. They wake up already behind. They spend the day responding instead of creating. They end the night promising themselves tomorrow will be different. Discipline is the moment you stop letting emotions drive the car. Not because emotions are bad, but because emotions are temporary. And a life built on temporary feelings can never produce permanent results. Here's something no one tells you early enough. You don't need more willpower. You need better systems. Willpower is unreliable. It fades when you're tired. It disappears when life hits hard. Discipline isn't about being strong all the time. It's about removing decisions before weakness shows up. When you decide in advance who you are and what you do, you stop negotiating with yourself. You don't argue with your alarm clock. You don't debate whether to show up. You don't wait until you feel ready. You already decided, and that decision becomes identity. This is where everything changes. Because once you stop seeing discipline as something you do and start seeing it as who you are, consistency becomes natural. You're not trying to work out. You're someone who trains. You're not trying to eat better. You're someone who respects their body. You're not trying to focus. You're someone who finishes what they start. Identity drives behavior, and every small disciplined action is proof. You give yourself that this identity is real. That's why small habits matter more than massive goals. Big goals inspire. Small habits transform. Anyone can feel motivated after watching a video. Few people can show up on a random Tuesday when nobody is cheering. That's where self-respect is built. In the silence, in the repetition. In the days that don't feel important, but decide everything. You don't become legendary by doing extraordinary things once. You become legendary by doing ordinary things relentlessly well. And here's the part most people avoid. Discipline requires discomfort. Not extreme discomfort. Just the willingness to feel a little uncomfortable. Now, so you don't live with regret later. Regret is far more painful than discipline. Regret lasts longer. It echoes. It whispers late at night when distractions are gone. Discipline hurts briefly. Regret hurts daily. Every time you choose discipline, you are choosing your future self over your current self. And your future self is watching. Watching what you eat. Watching how you spend time. Watching how often you quit. You are either building someone you'll be proud of, or someone you'll have to live with. There's no neutral. And listen closely here, this matters. You don't need to become extreme. You need to become consistent. Extreme changes burn people out. Consistency rebuilds them. Start smaller than you think you should. So small it feels almost embarrassing, because showing up at 50% consistently beats showing up at 100% occasionally. Momentum beats intensity. Every disciplined action stacks confidence. Every broken promise erodes it. That's why your first priority is not doing more. Your first priority is keeping promises. If you say you'll do 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. If you say you'll write one page, write one page. If you say you'll stop at a certain time, stop. Your nervous system needs evidence that you are trustworthy. Once that trust is rebuilt, expansion becomes easy. This is how people change their lives quietly, not by announcing, not by posting, but by accumulating undeniable proof. And slowly, almost without noticing it, becomes harder to betray yourself than to honor yourself. That's when discipline stops feeling like effort. It starts feeling like alignment. You are no longer fighting yourself. You are working with yourself. And that's when progress accelerates. There will still be hard days. There will still be resistance. But resistance no longer scares you. Because you understand something most people never do. Resistance is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're doing something meaningful. Comfort never asks you to grow. Discipline does. And growth always feels unfamiliar at first. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. It means new. As you keep listening, we're going to go deeper into how discipline reshapes confidence, how it repairs self-trust, how it changes the way you carry yourself, speak and make decisions, not by force, but by repetition. Because in the end, discipline isn't about becoming someone else. It's about finally becoming the person you already know you're capable of being. There is a moment in every person's life where they realize something important. The problem was never that life was too hard. The problem was that they kept avoiding what was hard. Avoidance feels safe in the moment. It feels like relief, like rest. But avoidance is not rest. Avoidance is debt, and that debt always comes due. You either pay the price of discipline now in small, manageable payments, or you pay the price of regret later with interest. Most people don't ruin their lives in dramatic ways. They drift. They drift a little further from their standards each year. They tolerate a little more than they should. They accept a little less than they deserve, not because they are weak, but because they stopped holding the line. Discipline is holding the line. It's deciding what you will not negotiate with. Your sleep, your health, your integrity, your focus. Once those lines blur, everything else follows. That's why disciplined people look calm. It's not because life is easier for them. It's because fewer things control them. They are not pulled in 1,000 directions by impulse. They are not constantly recovering from yesterday's decisions. They move with intention, and intention creates peace. Here's something subtle but powerful. Discipline reduces anxiety. When you know you will show up, your mind relaxes. When you know you'll handle things on time, fear loses its grip. When you trust yourself, uncertainty becomes manageable. An undisciplined mind is loud. It's full of unfinished tasks, broken promises, and mental clutter. A disciplined mind is quieter, not because there's less to do, but because nothing is being avoided. You don't need to control everything in your life. You just need to control the fundamentals. What time you wake up, what you put in your body, how you speak to yourself, what you do when you don't feel like doing anything. Those moments define you. And here's the truth most people resist. Discipline is not built when things are going well. It's built when things are heavy. When you're tired, when you're disappointed, when no one is encouraging you. That's when standards matter. Anyone can be disciplined when life is smooth. The real work is showing up when it's not. And you don't need to win every day. You just need to refuse to quit on the bad ones. A bad day is not failure. A bad week is not the end. Giving up on yourself is. You don't erase progress by struggling. You erase it by stopping. So when you fall off, don't dramatize it. Return to your routine. Return to your commitments. Return to your identity. The faster you return, the stronger you become. Discipline isn't about being flawless. It's about being reliable. Reliable to yourself. And reliability builds pride. Not loud pride. Not ego. Quiet pride. The kind that shows up in how you walk into a room. How you make eye contact. How you speak without over-explaining. People can feel it. They may not know what it is, but they feel it. That self-respect made visible. And self-respect changes what you tolerate. You stop entertaining distractions that drain you. You stop saying yes to things that cost you progress. You stop needing validation from people who don't live by your standards. Not because you think you're better, but because you're clearer. Clarity is a side effect of discipline. So is momentum. Once momentum starts, life gets simpler. You no longer rely on motivation. You rely on rhythm. And rhythm carries you on the days motivation disappears. This is how ordinary people become uncommon, not by doing more than everyone else, but by quitting less, by showing up longer, by staying in the work after the excitement fades. And eventually, the work becomes who they are. If you're listening to this and thinking, I've wasted too much time, let that thought go. Time is only wasted if the lesson is ignored. You are not late. You are being called to higher standards. And higher standards don't demand perfection. They demand honesty. Honesty about where you are. Honesty about what needs to change. Honesty about what you've been avoiding. Once you face that, discipline stops feeling heavy. It feels necessary, like oxygen. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Until one day you realize something quietly powerful. You are no longer chasing the life you want. You are living in alignment with it. There's a moment that comes after you've practiced discipline long enough where something unexpected happens. You stop arguing with yourself. The inner debate that used to drain your energy every day starts to fade. You no longer spend hours deciding whether to do what you already know you should do. You just do it. And that quiet shift is powerful, because decision fatigue is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck. They burn all their mental energy negotiating with their own standards. Discipline removes that negotiation. It simplifies life. You wake up and move. You work when it's time to work. You rest when it's time to rest. No guilt, no chaos, no constant self-judgment, just execution. This is where people misunderstand discipline again. They think disciplined people are harsh with themselves. In reality, they are kind in the long term. They don't indulge every impulse because they respect the cost. They don't sabotage tomorrow for relief today. They choose the version of kindness that lasts. And that choice compounds. Confidence stops being something you try to project. It becomes something you carry. Not because you believe you're special, but because you trust yourself. Self-trust is rare. Most people live with an unspoken doubt about themselves. They don't fully believe they'll follow through. They don't fully believe they'll handle pressure. They don't fully believe they'll stay consistent. That doubt shapes every decision they make. Discipline removes doubt because every kept promise is evidence. Evidence stacks. Evidence silences the voice that says, "I'm not capable." You stop needing external motivation. You stop waiting for someone to push you. You become internally governed. And that changes how you experience the world. Challenges stop feeling personal. Setbacks stop feeling fatal. Hard days stop feeling threatening. Because you know you'll respond, not collapse. This is where resilience is born. Not from hype, not from speeches, but from repetition. Resilience is not toughness. It's reliability under pressure. And discipline builds that quietly day after day. Here's another truth that matters deeply. You don't rise to discipline once and keep it forever. You practice it. Just like anything else worth mastering, there will be seasons where it feels easier and seasons where it feels heavy. The goal isn't to eliminate resistance. The goal is to normalize action despite resistance. Once action becomes normal, resistance loses its power. It can exist, but it can't control you. And control is what this is really about. Not controlling life, not controlling outcomes, controlling your response. That is the highest form of power. When you control your response, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You stop outsourcing your future to chance. You become intentional. And intentional people live differently. They don't rush, but they don't hesitate. They don't panic, but they don't avoid. They don't overpromise, but they always follow through. That balance is discipline matured. At this stage, discipline no longer feels like pressure. It feels like structure. And structure creates freedom. Freedom to focus. Freedom to say no. Freedom to build something meaningful without constant distraction. Most people want freedom but reject structure. They don't realize the two are inseparable. Without structure, freedom becomes chaos. Without discipline, freedom becomes drift. The people you admire, the ones who seem grounded, calm, and effective, they didn't stumble into that state. They built it, choice by choice, boundary by boundary, habit by habit. And none of it was dramatic. That's the part that humbles people. There was no moment where everything changed overnight. There was no lightning strike of motivation. There was just a decision, repeated long enough to become identity. And identity is powerful, because once something becomes identity, it no longer requires effort. You don't force yourself to be who you believe you are. You simply act in alignment. This is where discipline stops feeling like work. It becomes maintenance. Maintenance of standards, maintenance of clarity, maintenance of self-respect. And self-respect, once built, protects you. It protects your time. It protects your energy. It protects your future. You don't let just anything into your life anymore. Not people, not habits, not distractions. Not because you're closed off, but because you're focused. Focus is discipline in motion, and focus is rare. That's why disciplined people stand out without trying to. They don't talk more. They don't prove more. They don't chase attention. They move with purpose. And purpose is magnetic. If you're still listening to this, understand something clearly. You are not lacking anything. You are not broken. You are not incapable. You are not behind. You are simply being asked to raise your standards. And standards are not about punishment. They're about alignment. Alignment between who you say you want to be and what you do when it's uncomfortable. That alignment is discipline. And once you taste it, you don't want to go back. Because there is nothing more empowering than knowing, deep down, that you can rely on yourself. There's an interesting point that comes after progress starts showing. This is where many people lose themselves again. They finally build momentum. They start seeing results. They feel stronger, clearer, more capable. And then something dangerous appears. Comfort. Not the obvious kind, the subtle kind. The kind that whispers, "You've earned a break," but slowly turns into, "You don't have to be so strict anymore." This is where discipline is tested at a higher level. Not when things are hard, but when things are good. Because success doesn't destroy people. Complacency does. Discipline is what keeps success from becoming temporary. It's what protects you from slowly slipping back into old patterns under a new excuse. This is why discipline can't be tied to emotion or circumstance. It has to be tied to identity. You don't stay disciplined because you're afraid of failure. You stay disciplined because this is how you live. You don't abandon standards just because life feels lighter. You respect them even more. Because you understand something now. Everything you have was built by consistency. And consistency is fragile. It must be guarded. This doesn't mean you become rigid. It means you become intentional. You know when to push. You know when to rest. And you don't confuse rest with avoidance. Rest is deliberate. Avoidance is reactive. Discipline helps you tell the difference. And here's where discipline reaches its highest form. Self-mastery. Not control out of fear. Not restriction out of shame. Mastery out of clarity. You know what helps you grow. You know what pulls you backward. And you choose accordingly without drama. There's no inner chaos anymore. No constant guilt. No cycles of overindulgence and regret. Just balance built on awareness. That balance is earned, and once earned, it changes how you experience life. You enjoy things more because they're chosen, not escaped into. You rest more deeply because you've handled what needed handling. You work more focused because distractions no longer run the show. This is what self-respect looks like in motion. Quiet, grounded, unshaken. People may never know how much effort it took to get here. And that's fine, because discipline was never about applause. It was about becoming someone you don't have to run from. Someone you can sit with in silence and feel at peace. That peace is rare, and it's built, not found. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Discipline is not about doing more. It's about becoming more consistent with what matters. It's about choosing long-term pride over short-term relief. Alignment over impulse, standards over excuses, and you don't need to wait for a perfect moment to start. You start in the middle of your life, in the middle of your responsibilities, in the middle of your uncertainty. You start where you are, with one choice you keep, then another, then another. That's how small daily choices create legendary lives, not legends that shout, legends that endure. And the best part, once you build discipline, no one can take it from you. It goes with you into every season, every challenge, every opportunity. It becomes your foundation. And from that foundation, you can build anything. At some point, you stop measuring discipline by what it gives you. You stop asking what it produces. You stop tracking it only in results, because you realize something more important. Discipline gives you yourself back. Before discipline, your attention was scattered. Your energy leaked in too many directions. Your intentions were strong, but your follow-through was inconsistent. After discipline, there is alignment. What you think, what you say, and what you do begin to match. That alignment is rare, and when it happens, life stops feeling like a constant struggle against yourself. You are no longer divided. You don't need to hype yourself up. You don't need to tear yourself down. You simply act. This is where fulfillment begins. Not happiness in the loud sense, not excitement every day, but contentment, the kind that comes from knowing you're living honestly. You know what matters to you. You know what you're building, and you know you're not avoiding your potential anymore. That alone changes everything, because regret doesn't come from failure. It comes from self-abandonment, from knowing you could have shown up and choosing not to. Discipline is the antidote to that. It's how you make peace with your future self, so that when you look back, months from now, years from now, you don't feel the sting of missed chances. You feel respect. You feel gratitude for the version of you who decided to stop drifting. And this is where discipline becomes legacy. Not legacy in fame, not legacy in recognition, legacy in impact. Because disciplined people don't just change their own lives. They raise the standard around them. They show what's possible without preaching. They influence without forcing. They lead by example. Children notice. Partners notice. Colleagues notice. Consistency is contagious. And even if no one ever says it out loud, it matters. You matter. The way you live matters. And every disciplined choice you make sends a quiet message into the future. This is how I chose to live. You don't need to be remembered by millions. You just need to live in a way that doesn't require excuses. That's enough. That's everything. So if you're listening to this at a moment of uncertainty, hear this clearly. You don't need to overhaul your life tonight. You don't need a dramatic turning point. You need one honest commitment. One standard you stop negotiating with. One promise you keep, especially when no one is watching. That's where it starts. That's where it always starts. Discipline is not a finish line. It's a way of walking, a way of carrying yourself through the world, with intention, with integrity, with self-respect. And the more you practice it, the lighter it feels. Until one day you realize you are no longer chasing a legendary life. You are living one, quietly, consistently, on your own terms. And that is more than enough. And even after all of this, understand something important. Discipline is not something you graduate from. There is no day where you wake up and say, I'm done. I've mastered it. There is only the daily choice to stay aligned. Some days that choice will feel light. Some days it will feel heavy. But the difference now is this. You no longer confuse difficulty with danger. You don't run just because something feels uncomfortable. You don't quit just because progress slows. You don't abandon yourself just because no one is watching. You've learned how rare that is. Most people spend their lives trying to escape discomfort, not realizing that discomfort was the doorway to their strength. You walked through it again and again, and that changes the way you age, the way you face setbacks, the way you hold yourself during uncertainty. You stop needing reassurance because you've already proven to yourself what you're capable of. And when life eventually asks more of you, as it always does, you don't panic. You respond calmly, deliberately, with the same discipline that built you. That's the part no one talks about. Discipline doesn't just build success. It prepares you for loss, for responsibility, for moments where strength is required quietly. It teaches you how to stay steady when emotions run high, how to act without collapsing, how to move forward even when clarity hasn't fully arrived yet. That's maturity. And maturity is powerful. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain it. It shows in your decisions, in what you tolerate, in what you walk away from, in what you protect. You begin to live with fewer regrets, not because life is perfect, but because you are present. You are no longer half committed, no longer living on pause, no longer waiting for permission to take yourself seriously. And if there's one final truth worth carrying with you, let it be this. You don't need to become someone new. You need to become consistent with who you already know you should be. Discipline is simply the bridge between intention and reality. And every day you step onto that bridge, even when it's quiet, even when it's hard, you are building something that lasts, not just results. Character. Self-respect, a life that feels solid when everything else feels uncertain. So keep going, not loudly, not perfectly, but honestly, one disciplined choice at a time. That is enough, and it always was. And when the noise of the world gets loud again, as it always does, this is what will steady you, not motivation, not inspiration, not another voice telling you what you should do, but the quiet knowing that you will do what you said you would do. That knowing becomes an anchor, because life will test you. It will distract you. It will tempt you to return to old habits dressed up as comfort. And in those moments, discipline won't shout at you. It will simply remind you who you are. You won't feel the need to prove anything. You won't feel the need to rush. You won't feel the need to escape. You'll move forward, not because it's dramatic, but because it's right. And that's the final shift. You stop chasing transformation. You start living with intention. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You act in imperfect ones. You stop asking if you're ready. You become ready by moving. And over time, almost without realizing it, your life begins to feel solid. Not flashy, not chaotic. Grounded. You trust your mornings. You trust your routines. You trust your decisions. And that trust spills into everything else. Into your work, into your relationships, into the way you speak to yourself when things don't go as planned. You are no longer fragile. You are flexible. And flexibility built on discipline is strength. So wherever you are right now, early in the journey, or far along it, remember this. You are not defined by your worst days. You are defined by what you return to. Return to your standards. Return to your commitments. Return to yourself again and again. That is discipline, and that is self-respect in action. Carry it quietly. Let it shape you slowly, and let your life be the proof that small daily choices kept with honesty and consistency really do create legendary lives. Not all at once, but for good. And if there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's not pressure, it's permission. Permission to grow at your own pace. Permission to choose better, one small decision at a time. Permission to become someone you respect, quietly, consistently. You don't have to change your whole life today. You just have to keep one promise to yourself tomorrow. That's how journeys are built, not in moments of hype, but in moments of honesty. If this spoke to you, sit with it. Let it move with you into your next choice. And if you're walking your own path of growth, reflection, or healing, you're not alone here. This is Journey of Tales, where stories aren't told to escape life, but to understand it. Until next time, keep walking forward.